Hi there! So you're planning a trip to Seoul? I was there for 4 days. Let me give you some recommendations. I'll go over things to do, things we ate, where we stayed, and some other tips that I have because hindsight is 2020. Let me start off by saying that this is not a girly goo trip. This was a trip for Will's birthday, so it was actually based all around a tour to the DMZ. I was limited to only one shopping trip to Olive Young, and while I agree this is a travesty, I did talk to my friend who has had a girly weekend there, and she gave me some recommendations that I can share to you, which will be at the end of this video. Okay, let me talk briefly about getting there. We flew into Seoul, and make a note that Incheon Airport is not near downtown Seoul at all. It's like an hour and a half by car, or like an hour if you reserve a seat on the AREX high-speed train, and then it's closer to 2 hours if you take the normal train, which is what we ended up doing because I didn't know that we were supposed to make a recommendation on the RX train. We should have done that obviously, but it was full, so we had to take the slow train in. Moving on now to where we stayed. We talked to some friends who know us and they're familiar with Seoul, and they recommended where we should stay for our first visit, and those would be the neighborhoods of either Hongdae, Itaewon, or Myeongdong. Hongdae is a neighborhood a bit west of the city center, and it is a university town famous for indie music, urban art, local shops, and nightlife. Itaewon is also known for its nightlife, food scene, and is popular with expats and foreigners. It's kind of like the international district, and it's a bit closer to the city center than Hongdae. Myeongdong is the shopping and fashion district and is one of the main places tourists stay when they come to Seoul. We chose to stay in Itaewon, which I have some mixed feelings about, honestly. We chose to stay 2 nights in Itaewon's Antique Furniture Street, which I know sounds right up my alley, and that's why I booked it, because I was like, oh my god, I need to go to this street. But we weren't there during the day at all, so by the time we ever got back to our Airbnb, everything was closed. On the 3rd night we were there, we used our Amex credit to stay at the Grand Hyatt in Itaewon. The Grand Hyatt is amazing, obviously, with like beautiful views of the skyline, especially at night. We chose to stay in a room with a mountain view, which was kind of a parking lot roof view, but it did have a really pretty view of the scenery of the mountains and all the changing leaves in mid-November. Anyways, if I were to go there again, we would probably choose to stay in Hongdae or Myeongdong, just because like we spent a lot of time in Myeongdong, and I was like, yeah, I get why all the tourists stay here. It's really fun and nice. And then after learning more about Hongdae and seeing pictures of it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of more our vibe too. So that's how I feel about it. Next up, a few tips for getting around. We were told that Google Maps is like totally pointless when you go to Seoul, which I didn't have that experience. Our friends told us to download the Kakao map, which we did download, but it wasn't really user friendly, and so we didn't use it that much. Google Maps works in the way that you can like pull it up and see where you are, but the walking directions won't work. But it does work for like the subway and things like that, like to plan your route, but like in the moment it won't like tell you directions for how to get somewhere. You kind of just have to connect A and B and like walk in the direction that you think you should go. Uber is actually really affordable in Seoul, and once we found that out, we took that a lot more. Let's now talk about food. Real talk, whenever I'm at a Korean restaurant, I let someone else order for me, and it's always super good. So I am not like the expert on Korean food, but I will tell you what I know. Number 1, dakgalbi is amazing. You should definitely order it. It is a spicy chicken vegetable stir fry, and we get ours with cheese on top because we are American. And ours came from a restaurant that I can recommend to you. Like, it was super good. I could eat it every day, but I'm sure there's a lot of other restaurants in Seoul that serve this as well. Number 2 is Korean barbecue, which to me is kind of a given, and I think you're going to do it anyways. We ate at this Korean barbecue restaurant in Itaewon, mostly because it was close to our Airbnb, but it was super good and got good reviews, so I will recommend it. The food was really good and fresh, and the people working there were really nice and helped us decide like what we wanted to order. Number 3 is army stew, which we first saw on Anthony Bourdain's episode of Seoul. It's a hot pot of instant ramen noodles, spam, mushrooms, cheese, kimchi, beans, and just a bunch of random stuff. We went out of our way to find this restaurant that serves it in Myeongdong, and it was okay. I think like the novelty and the experience of it was actually more impressive than the actual taste, but I mean, that's just our opinion. Number 4, if you see the HBAF almonds anywhere, you should definitely get them. It stands for Honey, Butter, and Friends. I don't know why, but it's this brand of like flavored almonds. The best flavor, in my opinion, is the takgalbi, and then closely following that is the tiramisu flavor, although the honey butter, like original flavor, is really good too. There's a really big store that sells like all the different flavors, but you'll see them like around in the markets and stuff selling like, you know, a handful of the flavors there too. Lastly is Korean fried chicken. It's different than normal fried chicken because it is double fried and uses a lighter batter. Therefore, it's lighter and crispier than what you might be used to. My friend Britt recommended this fried chicken speakeasy in Seoul, but there are lots of other places to get it in the city too. Moving on, let's talk about temple stays. This is something that I really wanted to do, but we didn't, but I want to share with you as an option for something unique to do in the city. There's a website called templestay.com, and on it, it says that a temple stay is a cultural program for a better understanding of Korean traditional culture and Korean Buddhism. A temple stay includes chanting, meditation, conversation over tea, and Buddhist meals to give you a different perspective on life. So there are short temple stays where you only spend a few hours there, or longer ones where you can stay for a weekend to fully immerse yourself. On this website, there are lots of temples to choose from. Some are in the city and some are in nature or in the mountains. The temple I was looking at specifically is this one, Jigwonsa Temple. It's a bit north of the city, but like I said, we didn't get the chance to do this time around, but I know it's something I would really enjoy because of how unique and immersive it is. Okay, let's talk about the DMZ tour because it might be different now than in other videos taken even like a year or two ago. First of all, we booked with a company called VIP Travel, and this was their half-day DMZ tour, even though it kind of took up the full day. Okay, so if you'll remember, that one American guy ran across the border a few years ago during like that place where they're in the building and like North Korea's on the other side of it. He did that, so the whole tour is different now. First of all, you can't go in there at all. That building like isn't even part of the tour at all. Forget it. It's not happening and no one knows when it's coming back or if it's coming back. Secondly, when we were there, at least in November, you couldn't go to like the main observation deck. They took you to like this other observation deck where you can look across the border, but under like zero circumstances can you take pictures or like film or anything like that. From what I understand, the tours work like this, and this is why they're all kind of the same. Your tour guide will buy all the tickets for the bus once you get to this park. Imjinggak Park, maybe is how you say it. So once we got there, our girl like raced to the ticket counter because the number of tours that day dictates how long it'll take for us to get entry into the DMZ. So if there's like a lot of tour buses that day, you might have to wait longer at the park to like get your time slot to enter the DMZ because each tour, I'm pretty sure, only gets like 3 hours total in the DMZ and then they have to leave. So that's why a lot of the tours are similar because they only have that time frame to like do stuff that's in there. The only major difference I could see between the tours, and I was trying to look online and like figure out what they were like, is that some of them are led by people whose family like fled from North Korea, or like maybe even they did, I'm not really sure. I think that would add another level to the tour experience, but I mean, our girl Yuna was like really, really cool, and she was not from North Korea, and it was still a really good tour. I learned so much. So let me tell you how the day went in case you're curious. When you get there, your tour guide will run to go buy tickets, and then you have some time to wander around this park. There's a lot of different things to see in the park. She showed us around to a couple of the different like monuments and things that you can see there. There's like a train with a ton of bullet holes in it. And there's also this little hut where you can buy North Korean currency, which is pretty cool. From there, we went straight to the observatory that I was talking about, where you can like look but not take pictures or anything. This is kind of the only place for like a proper food stop. So it was kind of lunchtime. So we were like sitting there eating hot dogs, looking across the border, which was kind of a bizarre thing to be doing. But yep, that's all there was to do up there basically. So that's what we did. From there, we went to the third infiltration tunnel, which was discovered in 1978. You watch a movie and then you have some time to like go down into the tunnel and come back up. It's a pretty long walk, like slanted, and it gets kind of like tight at times. You have to wear a hard hat and stuff like that, which is kind of fun. And there's benches and stuff along the way, and you have enough time to go down and up, no problem. On our way back after all that stuff, we stopped by the Unification Village. And this is a place where people actually live within the DMZ, and there's actually a wait list to live there because it's kind of a sweet gig. They don't have to pay any taxes. During the day, there are a couple different places where you can buy souvenirs, and I would just say, like, if you see something you want, buy it there because it won't necessarily be at the rest of the stops. For example, we bought 2 bottles of North Korean blueberry wine, which I think is it's like a recipe from North Korea, but it's made by people from there, but it's still made in South Korea from what I understand. So we got 2 bottles of that, and then we got 1 bottle of cognac, and we wish we would have gotten 1 or 2 more, but we were like, oh, we'll hold off, buy it at the next stop. And then we get to next stop and it wasn't there. It was like sold out. So if you see something you want, just get it. There's some other unique souvenirs available there. So for example, like a piece of the old electric fence or something like that. We got a magnet, the currency, like I mentioned. We got the 2 bottles of wine and the bottle of cognac. The wine wasn't good, but I mean, it's the novelty of it, right? As I mentioned, this was a pretty full day. We got picked up around 9:30, and then we were back in the city by 4:30 p.m., and that kind of depends on traffic too. So pretty full day. I came into this pretty cold, like really not knowing a lot about the history between the two countries or anything like that. And so I thought that it was a super informative day. I'm glad we did it. I think Will enjoyed it as well. Another very touristy thing that we did, which I'm sure you've seen all over Instagram, is that we rented Hanboks and walked around the palace. So if you go a tiny bit west on that main palace gate road, you'll come upon a cluster of places where you can rent hanboks. And each place is pretty similar with a tiered pricing system depending on what type of hanbok you get and then for how long you want to rent it for. My rental came with a free hairdo and a free purse little rental. And I did the cheapest, like lowest end one, and it was still so pretty. And then once like the girl picks out hers, they kind of base Will's on that color, like the color palette that I chose. When you rent one of these, you actually get free entry into the palace. So it might feel kind of awkward, but then once you get to the palace, like literally everyone is wearing one. And so it's kind of cool to walk around and everyone's in their outfits, taking pictures and stuff like that. While it seemed crowded the day we were there, like at the gate and stuff like that, there's so many pretty places in there to take pictures. Like it's pretty spread out, it's really big. So you can definitely like find yourself alone if you wanted to just kind of wander around like that. We made our way up to this little pavilion lake pond guy, and I think that was my favorite photo spot of everywhere we took pictures that day. Once we bopped around a little bit in there, we had some time to kill before our hanboks were due. I think we rented them for 2 hours total. So we actually walked a couple blocks away from the palace and sat down, like had a beer. And that was weird because nobody was wearing anything like that where we were, even though we weren't that far. So we kind of just like sat outside, had some beers. People were like complimenting us on our outfits and stuff. It's like, that was cute. You can do that too. You don't have to go only inside the palace. You can literally just walk around in them. Another very touristy thing we did is visit the Bukchon Hanok village. This is a 14th century hilltop village, and it is very, very beautiful, very cool to walk around. But honestly, like I thought that it was kind of awkward. I felt bad for the people living there in this neighborhood, and they have to deal with these tourists walking around their streets. It was very like cramped and crowded up there, and I felt bad because there was like volunteers, I think, with signs standing at like every street corner reminding people to be quiet because this is a private residential area. And also the whole place closes at 5 for tourists, and then it's closed on Sundays. Something to be aware of. The vibe just kind of made me feel anxious and that I was being annoying to people who live there, so we didn't stay very long. But that being said, there are some places in that neighborhood that are super welcome to tourists. So there is the Oriental Culture Museum, which has a viewing deck with good views. There's also the Traditional Culture Center that has classes and performances. And then there is this hall that is a free museum. There's also a Traditional Craft Center that offers classes as well. If you are up for walking around, it's maybe not that crowded. You can also Google the 8 scenic views of Bukchon. And those are mostly labeled on Google Maps as well if you want a more like complete walking guide of the area. Next up, I want to share some markets. There's lots of different markets in Seoul. I'm not an expert, but here are some that I had saved and that we went to. First is the Myeongdong night market, and we went to this one on a weekend and it was awesome. The streets are mostly closed off to pedestrians, all the stores are open, and there's tons of different food stalls. There is also this market that we went to as well. We stopped in to get some pancakes. It was covered, a little more local feeling maybe, but I think locals would say that it's not local, but to me it felt more local than the Myeongdong market at least. Nearby to there is this other general market that has more items like clothes and housewares with some food mixed in. Next, I just want to share all the random extra Google pins that I had saved on my maps. I'm not going to try to pronounce a lot of these, so I'll just put them up on the screen for you to screen grab or save however you want to. First up is this street. I have it listed as a cool neighborhood to stay in and a fancier place to go shopping. Across the river is this area, which I have noted as the Brooklyn of Korea. There's lots of repurposed warehouses. You can find some emerging artists in this warehouse called the Darim warehouse. I also have this pin saved as a quote shabby chic chemical factory that has been regenerated into a cultural space. This cable car is an activity that my friends recommended. It takes you to the North Seoul Tower with great views of the city and a restaurant. And this area right here has a nice river walk. I have this culture street marked as a pedestrian street with antique shops, traditional tea houses, and cultural festivals. In that area also is a mall that has a lot of gift ideas, clothing, art, jewelry, and restaurants inside. This bar is one that my friend recommended, and he said it's one of his favorites. It's a fancy speakeasy cocktail bar in the basement of the Four Seasons Hotel. There is a national park to the north of the city that looks super beautiful, and I guess you can take a subway here and go on a hike. The War Memorial of Korea was also recommended to us as one of our friends' favorite museums in the city. Another museum on my radar is the Leum Museum of Art, which is known as one of the best private museums in South Korea. There is also the Museum Kimchi-kan, where you can learn about the origins of kimchi and have a kimchi tasting experience. Okay, and now for the bonus, I have some recommendations from my friend Britt, who did the girly trip to Seoul. So thank you, Britt, for these recommendations that I can share with everyone. First is Greedy Scent, and this is a place where you can make your own perfume, and it looks like there's a couple of them in Seoul. There is Juno Hair in Myeongdong, where she got a head spa. There is Park June Beauty Lab in Myeongdong as well that has scalp treatments. Beauty Play has a location in Hongdae and Myeongdong, and they do skin analysis and I think a personal color analysis as well. Solistique Skin is another place that does skin analysis and facial treatments. She also shared this restaurant that looks like it has really, really good noodles and dumplings. There's also the 943 King's Cross in Hongdae, and this is a multi-story Harry Potter themed cafe. Lastly, she told me about this Secret Palace Garden, which is generally open to the public, but there are parts of it where you can only see it on a guided tour, and I can leave a link to more of that below. Cool. Well, I hope this helps you plan your trip to Seoul, South Korea. This was our only time visiting South Korea so far, but I do have some similar videos to this one on our trips to the Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, and Taiwan. I'll leave one of our latest videos here about how we spent 4 days in Taipei, Taiwan. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!